Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Congregation Beth Israel. I have a word from the family that, they will. Hello, everybody. We're so glad that you came here today. An important it's amazing how many people Ken touched. Just amazing. Because of parking issues and such, there's a couple of people that haven't come yet. We're not going to start exactly on time, just to let you know. If you need to use the facilities, just go out those glass doors over there. I hate to interrupt you because, like the family says, what they really want you to do is talk with each other, meet one another. So I'll come back up in a couple of minutes. I'm Rabbi Jeffrey Glickman, and we'll get started, but a couple of minutes late. At ease, as they say. Welcome to Congregation Beth Israel. I'm Rabbi Jeffrey Glickman. We're honored to be able to host such an event for someone who was so beloved and touched so many wonderful people. Our Master of Ceremonies is Ken's very good friend, Roger Rector.
Welcome, everybody. Can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Okay? Okay, good. I want to thank everybody for coming today. Ken would be honored to have you all here today. I'm sure if he can, he's looking down right now and feeling the love that's here for him in this room right now. I'd like to introduce myself. As the rabbi said, I'm Roger. I've known Ken for a good 45 years. We met through a mutual friend when he owned the Carmel Plaza restaurant in the Carmel Plaza. Ken and I, we became instant friends, maybe because we were both born in New York, maybe because we were both Jewish. Who knows? It was just meant to be. Okay, sorry about that. All right, good. Ken and I became instant friends. Maybe because we were both from New York, or maybe because we were both Jewish, or maybe it was just meant to be. Whenever I was with Ken and I told somebody that I was from New York, Ken would say, "No, he's not. He's not from New York. He's from upstate New York. That's not New York." And that was the way Kenny was. I always had to explain, okay, I'm from upstate New York, blah, 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 blah. But it always made for a good conversation starter. I got to the point where whenever I was with him and we met new people, I would pause because I knew he would jump at teasing me because I'm not from New York City. So we lived through a lifetime of celebrations, challenges, hardships, and heartfelt moments. Even after a period of time where we didn't talk a lot, whenever we started talking again, we just picked up right where we left off. Friends often turn into family, and Ken was my brother. I loved him. He was part of my chosen family. We'd say, he's my brother from another mother, kinda. And the reason I say kinda is because our mothers both had the same name. How ironic that was, and it was Florence. And he talked often about how much he loved his mom. And I respected him a lot for that, because I loved my mom too. Ken has always been a generous man. He was always the first to offer help. If it was an event that needed planning or a family get-together, he was always the one that knew how to make it happen, or, if you know Ken, direct somebody else to do it. Ken was always sharing his ideas or giving advice, and if he had anything to say, he definitely, positively had zero filter. Sometimes that was a gift, and sometimes it wasn't. And sometimes it just got him in trouble, honestly. But if you simply just needed someone to talk to, he was a really, really great listener. What he said always came from a good place, his heart. He loved deeply, and he showed it with his actions. He was loyal. He's had friends for years, as well as employees that have stuck with him no matter what, and they have stuck with him. He was very proud. He was very proud of that, and of course of his children, whom he loved so much. Ken's bottom line was trying to say or do something that really made a difference, and he did often. He had strength, courage, and was often full of humor. He always had a way of making me not just smile, but burst into laughter, even at a time where I didn't expect it at all. We would often say if people heard our crazy conversations, they'd think we were nutcases. And to be honest with you, sometimes we were really crazy, the conversations we had. But then we'd laugh and laugh until we cried. But that's being a brother. Ken was highly accomplished, educated, hardworking, and devoted to service. He focused deeply and gave generously to the community through the many organizations he cared about in support of Carmel. He even would go to Washington, D.C. and talk to legislators regarding the Restaurant Association in California. He would go to any event or trade show as long as it was somewhere fun to travel or where he could see a friend or bring family with him to have a good time. Ken's way of caring was food. Sharing a meal, breaking bread with people, he'd say, while listening to them share about their lives at whatever restaurant he managed or owned at the time. I would talk about all he has done, but I'd be here really all night, and I don't even know all the accomplishments he's had. Plus, Ken would say, "Roger, don't talk so much. The food is getting cold, and there's food back there." So I know he'd be saying that. I'll try not to talk so much. I do have many more pages, though. I can remember him saying hundreds of times, "Are you hungry? What can I get you?" Or what can I bring to your family? Or let's have a party. And years ago, we had many parties. He and I were both each other's best man. Ken held my daughter the day she was born. He was always there. I remember the time he surprised me by flying to New York to be at my mother's funeral. That's a special kind of person, a special friend. He was my brother, as I've said. I loved Ken, and he made a huge impact in my life. My daughter and my stepkids told me that Ken used to give them money when they were little, when he saw them. Then he'd say, "Don't tell Roger. Do not tell your dad I gave you money." Because honestly, he knew that I'd probably say, "Is that all you're going to give him? You're not going to give him more money?" Honestly, Ken was, he was very giving and very thoughtful. And he sure was to the community for people that just knew him in that way. We did a lot of self-help courses together, Ken and I, when we were in our late 30s. We had many, many, many private conversations. I'm reminded about Ken at the hospital when he had one of the procedures he had a couple months back. I said, "How you doing, Ken?" He said, "I miss my mom." and started to cry. And one of the last things he said was, "I just want to hold my children." That's what life comes down to at the end, love and who you love, and that's what Ken was thinking about. Good for him. It wasn't about his stuff, his money, or things he had or things he did. It wasn't. Sometimes we would talk about the important things in life. And I think because he was the kind of person that brought people together, I think right now he'd want me to say and ask us to think, have I loved enough? Have I called my mom, my dad, my brother, or my sister, or my loved one? Have I let people see me, who I am? Have I taken the risk to give my heart freely? Have I taken time to listen? Have I cared enough? Have I gone out of my way for my family, my friends, or my employees? Have I given a person that wanted to share permission to be raw with me? Have I told a child or someone close, it's okay, it's okay? Have I forgiven someone? Have I hugged that person that needs a hug? Have I forgiven myself? Have I said, I love you? Have I said, I love you to yourself, to me? These are things that Ken and I would talk about. And maybe some of you might not have known that part of him. And as much as the rough edges he had sometime, he was a beautiful human being. And he'd always ask you how you are. And he wouldn't just walk by you and go, oh, how are you? That wasn't him. He'd say, how are you? Stop, listen, and you really want to know. That's not normal, but it should be. It really should be. That's caring. I know I'm not alone in that. And I'm sure he was the same way to people he cared about and his children and friends and his employees. Ken was so very proud of his children and spoke to me about their lives often. He loved to talk about how well they were doing and also some of the worries he had regarding them, but that's what a father does. He laughed on how they would run around free around whatever restaurant he was running or owned at the time, out of control. And he said the same, he brought that up not only for Chris and Jared, but for David, his son who had passed long ago. He brought him up in a lot of situations. He was very proud of Chris and Jared and his nephew Daniel. I know what else he'd want me to, I don't know what else he'd want me to share regarding that because a lot of things were private and I don't have permission to share them. And, but I know one thing. He sure loved his boys. He loved his immediate family and also the one he created. He even created a restaurant long ago, a restaurant deli named Lenny's. That was his brother. His brother's name is Lenny. He did that years ago in honoring his older brother. It's nice also to know that there's another Spilfogel, Daniel, which will be running the restaurant Ken cared so much about. He said to me about Daniel so many times how much, I can always trust Daniel. Ken always wanted to bring people together. Because of that, when I stop talking and will be soon, and there's a little pause between myself and the next person, introduce yourself, if you'd like, to the person next to you and find them later and tell them a story, why you know Ken or how you know him. Maybe connect with them and tell a story that was really important to you. To conclude, and I am concluding. The food is getting cold back there. To conclude, I'd like to say to Ken, may you be filled with love, peace, compassion, forgiveness, and contentment as you continue your life in the heavenly form. May you be at peace and feel love as you hold on to your son David and your mother's hand as you walk into the light. I love you, Ken. You are my brother. You will be missed, and I'm better off to have known you. And next to speak is going to be Victoria Antratonova. Did I say that right, Victoria? I didn't. She can repeat it right, but her last name is also Spilfogel. Come on.
Can you adjust it a little bit? Should I? Good afternoon. We are here to remember my husband Ken, the father of 3 sons, Chris and Jared, and of course David, who left us far too early. I'd like to think that David and his father would meet again, but I'm unsure about such thing. What I do know is that David and Ken will live forever in our hearts. Many of you are here to honor Ken Spilfogel, who was the proprietor of Flaherty's. Ken once told me his dream was to live above the restaurant. He took an apartment in Carmel to run for an open city council seat, but fate had other plans for Ken. He never did achieve his dream of living above the restaurant or being an elected tribune of the people of Carmel. But Ken, in his final years, became more deeply involved in the community. What only some of you know is the hard work that was behind what seemed effortless. Ken advocated for his fellow restaurateurs, as it is a tricky business where even beloved restaurant can fail. After I went to work for Ken, soon to become his wife, I found out we were not alone. And it was not another woman. I found out as a young wife, I not only had married Ken, but ended up married to his restaurants. For the best part of 2 decades, we worked and worked hard and worked harder to make the restaurants a success. The Plaza Cafe, Lenny's Deli, Backstreet Bistro, and finally Flaherty's. Ken worked hard, and I believe he learned the value of hard working from a rather extraordinary woman I had the privilege to know, his mother Florence. All that effort, and there were only so many hours in a day, and many of those hours Ken and myself gave to the restaurants, working alongside with Ken's nephew Daniel, and all those who worked alongside at the Plaza Cafe, Lenny's, and later Flaherty's. A group that includes his youngest son, Jared, who was a waiter at Flaherty's at some time. Not an easy way to make a living, very tough on the feet and lower back, to say nothing of one soul dealing with some of the guests, as Ken called them, who could prove a real pain in the backside. And Ken engaged with them all in person, on Yelp. His customers, his guests, were Ken's first constituency, the first community he served for over 40 years in Monterey Bay area. Ken threw his arms around the world, and it seems that over the years, the world came to Ken, customers and employees, including me, his wife of 24 years, born in USSR. What is the secret of a memorable restaurant owner's life? Well, Ken was a foodie, and Ken's life was as rich and full as the flavors he so loved to discover. But food was not the be-all and end-all for Ken's life. For Ken, food was never just food. It was culture, connection, and joy. It was sharing himself with people and the community. When I first came to Carmel at age 22, my English skills left a lot to be desired. And Ken relished introducing me to American culture and helped me develop my language skills. And even defended me on Yelp when a Russian waitress was singled out by a reviewer, not in a good way. But that was Ken, responding personally to his guests who griped on Yelp. The Russian poet Evgeny Yevtushenko, remembered here in America for his poem Baby Yar, wrote a poem, My Universities. To Yevtushenko, a life of hard work, seemingly menial jobs, and other actual life experiences that other poets would consider too common to write a poem about was his universities. They educated him to the way the world really is. My husband Kenny was my university. Ken was driven, smart, and worldly, with a great sense of humor, even if it was straight out of Brooklyn. From Coney Island to Carmel by the sea, it was quite a journey, isn't it, Ken? You taught me, so many others, the value of perseverance, the importance of focusing on results, and the joy of lifelong learning. You believed that life was meant to be lived fully, with both feet in the game and eyes wide open. Ken, you were a complicated man, and it was difficult for you, away from the restaurant and your guests, whom you served throughout your life, to express your innermost feelings to me and others. If you are here now, and you are here with me, your sons, and your loved ones and friends, I'd say you might not know it or would be embarrassed to acknowledge, but you were filled with love. And I'm here to acknowledge that love, and my love for you, through all the trials and tribulations that are the part of restaurant business and the part of marriage that stretched a quarter of a century. And your sons and loved ones and your numerous friends and guests are here today to say, along with me, I love you. We love you. There won't be another man like you. And you will never be forgotten, because you will live on within me and your sons and your family and friends and guests. Thank you.
Glenn Hammer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think the last time I stood up here was 27 years ago when my son Nathan got bar mitzvahed. So it was nice to be back here. What a crowd we have here today. I think the last time this many people showed up was Yom Kippur last year. Ken Spilfogel. Where do you start with a guy like him? Let me just give you a few overview over the last 48 plus years that I know him. I arrived here in 1979. I was hired as food and beverage director at the then Doubletree Hotel. And the first week I moved here, all of a sudden I heard there was someone in the restaurant wanted to meet me, and my chef, Chuck, said to me, there's a guy here you want to meet. So I go to the restaurant and sit down, and then this is Ken Spilfogel, and Kenny looks at me, he goes, I just heard there was another Jewish guy in town running food and beverage operations. So I thought you and I should meet. Well, 2 hours later, we discovered we not only met each other that day, but 10 years before that, we were working in the Borscht Belt, the Catskill Mountains, as a busboy at the Granite Hotel. For about 2 weeks, we were there together at the same time. And we started reliving stories of the Catskills and then Brooklyn and Miami, where he lived for a little while also. He was unbelievable. So after the Catskills, let me just go forward. He came to town here originally, which a lot of people probably forgot, but Nevis Polly Haas and Lunt hired him when they bought the general store Forge in the Forest in Carmel. So Ken was the actual person that put that restaurant on the map. And he hired personalities, the waitresses, the managers, the bartenders. I mean, you had guys like Steve the Jeweler. No, I'm sorry. Pardon me, I'm going forward too much here. But by his walking around the general store, my first remembrance of going to visit him there, he's walking around as the manager with a bag of Oreos, eating Oreo cookies as he's saying hello to all the customers. That was Ken. Ken loved to eat, as all of you are hearing. Part of the thing from being president from the general store, he became president of McFly's. McFly's opened up 10 McFly's around the country. Ken was in charge of the inception, the menus, the composition, the installation, and he wrote all over the country opening up these McFly's. I remember one trip taking with him. Ken was the first guy to buy a Toyota van, the original Toyota van. And he outfitted the van with a video camera, with a stereo, so he said to me, he says, "What movie do you want to see?" I said, we're driving 5 hours to LA. What do you mean, what movie? He goes, "Pick out 2 movies." I got in there, 2 movies. We sat there and we watched a movie for 5 hours. He's driving and we're watching the movie while we're driving to Los Angeles. This was Ken Spilfogel. He had every little gadget known to mankind. When he was president of McFly's and over the restaurants, they had their offices on Cannery Row, which was on the base floor was Joe Romby had the Oro Cafe. You had Steve the Jeweler. Upstairs with Robert Kincaid opened up his first fresh cream. It was like a circus running around from restaurant to restaurant. This morning I was at another funeral, ran into Joe Romby and Lori Hoganson. Lori says, "Oh yeah, Ken, burger and fries." It had to be delivered to his office every day at a certain time. It was, that was Kenny. The travels of McFly's took him even to Michigan. They took over an Army base called in Kinchlow, Michigan, for a housing development restaurant, and he operated that as well. He was nonstop as far as production of ideas. When I was in LA with him at the Merlin McFly's, again, you think he walks Carmel? He had that street covered. We'd walk down the street. My friend Irv Siegel had a pizza place, Wildflowers. You had call me Bobby Berman, with the art gallery. He used to work here in Monterey. Pat Finney had the Baja Cantina in Marina del Rey. Before you even knew he was here, he was in Marina del Rey with his restaurant. I met Pat with Kenny then, back in the early 80s. From there, he opened up his own restaurant, the Plaza Cafe. And when Kenny opened up the restaurant, he realized that he needed to stay full year-round. Well, he made a surgence where he would go up to San Francisco, and he met with all the tour companies. And the buses that you see on the side of Carmel Plaza today are a result of Ken going up there and contracting with the bus tours, getting them to come here, servicing them. On one occasion, I remember Daniel and I were talking about, I said, went to the restaurant in Farley's one day, "Where's Kenny?" Oh, he had to go up to San Jose. The bus broke down, and he and 6 cars going and picking up the passengers, feeding them, and taking them to San Francisco to the next destination, because the bus company couldn't get a bus there soon enough. That was Ken. He helped other people, too. His friend Andre had Lugano. Well, without Ken, Lugano never would have happened. I can remember the first meeting with them on the Plaza Cafe patio. They're sitting there talking about opening up the restaurant. And Ken's sitting there, as Roger was saying, says, "Andre, you don't know what you're talking about. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. And this is the food you're going to serve. Don't tell me you're going to open up this. You're not going to do that. We don't need another Italian restaurant in town. That was Kenny. The year that he opened up the Plaza, a year later, I opened up my own restaurant, Hammerheads, downtown, my first one. And in between that, after 30 to 45 days opened up, somehow I got involved with Monterey Peninsula College, which is with this guy, Max Tadlock, who was the president. And I had gone to several meetings, and lo and behold, Ken and I ended up going partners in getting the catering contract at the fairgrounds, which we operated for 2 years. Opened up the restaurant Oakwoods, remodeled the kitchen and the bar that you see there today, we put in there many years ago. And as a result of that, with a coordination with Monterey Peninsula College, Ken and I were the ones who started the first hospitality program at Monterey Peninsula College, which still operates today, and just is going to have a new campus for $25 million out at Fort Ord. That was Ken Spilfogel and Glenn Hammer started that, not someone else. People forget about that. He loved his kids. You know, when the twins were born, I nicknamed them Ishkabibble 1, Ishkabibble 2, which I still call them that today. When David came down with his tumor, Ken made it a way of life, going around the country finding other opinions, other remedies, and he quenched for knowledge on that, never stopped. Unfortunately, in the final days, Sue and I were sitting next to him when the doctor came out and gave us word that David had passed away, which is something that is always in my heart and never forget to this day. He had a love, as everyone here, for Carmel. He made it an art of walking Carmel. He knew every restaurant, every retail store, every owner, every person, and all of you are sitting out there today know that he had a part in some way, whether you liked it or not, he would tell you about your operation. He was lucky enough to get in touch with attorney Mike Albov, who hired him to go in and resurrect Flaherty's. In the first year of operation, Ken single-handedly increased the revenue $1.2 million the first year, to where they were losing money to where they were making money on top of that, which is still evident today with how Flaherty's is running. He made many journeys around the country to Washington, D.C., as you heard before. He would look at food shows in Boston for seafood. The pizza show, he made it an art of going there every year because he was always going to open up that pizza store on Ocean Avenue, which he was hoping to get the art gallery to go out of business and put the pizza store in there. Talked about that for 15 years. And I think last month he was still talking about a pizza store when he was in the hospital. Along came Jared, who he loves as well, who he's very proud of. I'm proud to say that I've known all three of his wives intimately, and share that also. I think as I'm standing here right now, I may be his oldest friend in Carmel of 48 plus years. I think one of the great things was when he was at Flaherty's or at any of his other restaurants, you can walk in the door and he'll say, what do you want to eat? What do you want to drink? I'll be with you in 15 minutes, which ended up being 45 minutes because he always had 15 other things he had to run and do and say and do. He was never satisfied with the bread on the Monterey Peninsula. Bread was like a middle name of his. He would go to New York, just eat at bakeries in New York. He'd call me up, he goes, Glenn, you got to go to this bakery next time you're in town. It's unbelievable what they got going here, the onion rolls and this. He goes, I got to make these. Well, he even did, he pulled a beauty with Daniel. He had Daniel go, he made arrangements next door. Sorry, right. He made arrangements at Infernaio for Daniel to go downstairs, learn the bread operation so he can make their bread at his restaurant and he wouldn't have to pay them for the bread. He then, at bakeries in New York, he would get recipes, and even at the Plaza Cafe downstairs, Daniel was baking bread down there, making desserts that no one else had in the Monterey Peninsula. It was something. The greatest things were, as all of us are talking about, Roger mentioned also, is you walked in the door and to Flaherty's, and there was always a conversation to be had. Unless Ken didn't want any part of you, he'll say, Glenn, this is not a good time. This is not a good time. And he'd hold his head and walk to the back, get a breadstick, and come back and sit down and say, I can't talk to you now. Okay. Kenny is a person that's been my dear friend and confidant for years, but not saying that there's been ups and downs with our relationship. There's been every 3-4 years, he officially divorces me and doesn't want to talk to me. So I wait about 3 or 4 months. I call him up on the phone. He goes, hey, how you doing? He goes, I said, are you talking to me now? He goes, when was I not talking to you? We had great talks about food, life, his trips to Europe, which he loved, visiting friends. As Roger mentioned to you about his trips around, always had to be with food, friends, and good times. And he never, ever had a trip that he didn't enjoy and come back with something great. I love my conversations with him. I love sharing with him. And all I can tell you is I'm going to miss my friend. Thank you.
Manny.
Hello, everyone. How are you? All right, here we go. So, since I learned about this, that I would be speaking, I kind of prepared a speech, and but the last few days, I have all these ideas bouncing around in my head. What do I want to say about Kenny? And there's a lot of good stories. I didn't know Kenny as long as some people have, but the time that I did know him was extremely special to me. So one thing that I know about Kenny was not in the box. Everything about Kenny was outside of the box. So I'm not going to stand up here and give my whole speech right at this podium. I'm going to come out for a second, and I'm going to do a couple of things that I think Kenny would have loved. So let's see. I'll come back to my prepared speech in a minute. So, as I'm bouncing ideas around, I go to Melly, my wife, I say, hey Melly, one of the things I want to do is I kind of want to dress like Kenny and celebrate his life. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, so I explained. So I said, I'm going to look for lime green shoes, jeans, kind of baggy, a hot pink shirt, and a blue vest. And she's like, no, you can't do that. Don't do that. And I'm going, but people don't know what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is this, is that Kenny dressed the way he lived his life. Everything was good to him. The color, the mixing things around. So what I was trying to convey to her was that Kenny's dress was exactly that. Everybody was a friend, and he didn't have hang-ups, any racial hang-ups or anything like that. So I kind of canned that idea until I was driving down here, and I said, all right, I'm going to do it anyways. So before I get to my real speech, there's something, so Flaherty's is right around, right next door to Edwin's. And we became, when I became friends with Kenny, we became really good friends. Myself, Giancarlo, and Kenny was during COVID, when we spent almost the whole time together, either at Albatross Ridge Winery or at Flaherty's. So when I was, right, Luca, settle down. So he's the last part of my speech, and it's the only part of my speech that breaks me up. So I'm going to try to get through that part without breaking up. But one of the things about Edwin's is we would always gather there. A lot of us, a lot of locals. Here's one thing that most people don't understand. You could work in Carmel many years, but if you don't live in downtown by the sea, Carmel, you really don't know what it's like. It's really a tight little village. We see each other all the time. We spend time together. Luca's experiencing that. He already knows half the restaurateurs. So it's just a different way of spending your daily life. So after COVID, I'm working at Edwin's. I volunteered to tend bar. And I'm a huge boxing fan. Kenny's not a huge boxing fan. But he got a kick out of this. And when first time I did it, I go see him the next day at the restaurant, and he's like, Manny, where'd you come up with that? How'd you know how to do it? So he had like 30 questions on why I did this, and he goes, are you gonna do it again? Do it again, do it again. I'm like, all right, Kenny, we'll do it again. So, how many of you know boxing or follow boxing? Some fans, we have some fans here. So there's a really famous announcer named Michael Buffer, and he has the absolute best introduction into boxing of anybody on the planet. So a good part of my speech is going to be about how Kenny knew the best of everything. I don't care what it was. Sunglasses, food, bagels, cars. Kenny knew the best. That's how he was. He knew the best of everything. So I'm driving down here thinking, all right, I think I'm going to do this. But this time, I didn't tell Nellie because I knew she was going to say no. Don't do it. So I want Kenny, wherever he is, to be able to tell people that I had the best introduction to a celebration of life speech out of anybody in history. And he would say that too, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna ask you to participate in this. Please don't sit on your hands. When I'm done with this, I want you to cheer as if you're at an amazing event, which you are at, okay? So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, welcome to the world-renowned Congregation Bethpage in Carmel, California, not by the sea. I'm going to shorten it up. I'm not going to do the whole thing. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble! And let's celebrate. Kenny knows the best of everything. Spilfogel! All right, I'll get back to my regular speech. All right, hello, I'm Manny Espinosa, a friend of Kenny, as all of you are. I do want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Kenny. What can we say? What can I say? So I'm going to start it this way. Roger, Manny, JK, the mayor, where are you, Mayor? Right there. Mayor Dale and the rabbi walk into a restaurant. And before anybody can say a word, Kenny jumps in, says, first of all, it's just not any restaurant, it's the best restaurant. Okay? Second, he says, Rabbi, the best rabbi in history. I know that for a fact. He's the best rabbi in history. Roger, top tier friend. You can't find a better friend anywhere on the planet than Roger. My staff, sitting here, different places, absolute best staff you could ever wish for. There's some disagreements once in a while between them, but we all work it out. Okay? Mayor Dale, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. If he had listened to me, you would have been the best mayor in the history of Carmel by the Sea, baby. All right, let's see, I lost my spot here. Last couple people, JK and myself. Kenny's like, they need some work. Okay? All right. So that was Kenny. He didn't just know things, he knew the best version of everything. Best bagels, New York City, no debate, probably 2 doors down from where he lived. And he probably had something to do with the recipe. Guarantee you, okay? Best seafood, his place. Somehow even beating the ocean itself. This is a good one, because I had to listen to this for like a few years. Best food at a Jewish food festival? Right here in this place. Because Kenny Spilfogel fixed it. He was amazing, okay? We can go on. I can be here for like 10 hours talking about the best of everything that Kenny knew about. Best dentist, best seat in the house, best everything. So, honestly, if Kenny lived during biblical times, he would have told Moses, you know, the commandments are pretty good, but I know a guy. I could probably do better, okay? So that was kind of Kenny. So I'm going to get off the best subject for a few minutes, and I'm going to share just a few stories. Like I said, I haven't known Kenny, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, but we're going to talk about COVID. So I knew Kenny. We had kind of worked together a little bit, but during COVID, I don't know how you guys feel or where you were, but I can almost guarantee you there's nowhere on the planet that I would have rather been is in downtown Carmel by the Sea. It was just different. So it was myself, John Carlo, and Kenny, and we created a bond at that time that it just lasted. And I wish Kenny was around because it would have lasted another 20 years. JK, he would park his truck outside of Albatross Ridge, and he erected these boxes of wine that were like a little maze so that we could sit back there and drink wine. And nobody knew, because I guess people from the city were maybe driving around. But what would happen is Kenny would always go check his mail. And this didn't only happen during COVID, it happened like all the time. Kenny would walk to the post office, he'd walk back, drop in on JK with like a stack of junk mail and every catalog that he ordered from, well, it was Amazon, just recently, but he'd go through the whole thing, leave it on JK's bar, and then he'd walk back to the restaurant. It would drive John Carlo crazy. So if we weren't at Albatross Ridge, drinking wine, talking about everything under the planet that Kenny knew the best of, we were at Flaherty's. So a good friend of mine is Ryan Sanchez. He owns Surf and San Bruno's, the Sanchez family. They've been here forever. He started a tequila brand, and during COVID, Kenny calls me and says, hey, Manny, we got to change all the signs, we got to change the menus, we got to shake things up so that we can kind of stay relevant and, keep things rolling. So we kind of came up with the idea. I told, hey, Kenny, Ryan has these nitro draft margaritas. You don't have to mix them. You buy a keg, you push it with nitro, and they're really fuzzy and they're really good. So he starts thinking, we start thinking, and at that time, during COVID, you can buy alcohol and walk around town with it. So we came up with this bright idea to sell big gulp size margaritas. And they became really popular. And people came out of the woodwork to drink these margaritas. And so if we weren't at Albatross Ridge, we were at Flaherty's scheming up some idea or something that we can have fun with or get away with. So where are we? Oh, this is a good one. Kenny would be rude to somebody once in a while. And I go, Kenny, why do you say that? He goes, well, I'm from New York. That's just how I am. I'm from New York. So Glenn mentioned, sometimes you walk in to see him, you're all happy. Hey, Kenny, what's up? And like Glenn said, I'm busy right now, So I walk in one day, I'm all happy. Hey, Kenny, what's up? And he just goes like this. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to walk away, be cool. So I go back the next day. I go, hey, Kenny, what's up? He's like, I'm busy right now. So I'm like, you know what, Kenny? Some words I shouldn't use. And I was like, and I walked out. So I go to Edwin's, because I'm angry. And half an hour later, Kenny comes walking in. And I'm sitting, I sat purposely at the back of the bar because I knew he probably felt bad and he was going to come try to find me. So he comes in, walks through it's kind of busy, goes to the back. He gets this close. And I go, get out of here. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. He's like, but Manny. I go, I don't want to hear it, Kenny. Get the hell out of here. So he... out the door, down to Flaherty's. 30 seconds after I did that, I felt really bad. Because that's not me. Anybody who knows me knows that is not my personality. So, long story short, a week later, we make up and we're friends again. But, yes. I'm not going to get into that. It's kind of political, but I'm not going to. Anybody who knows Kenny and knows how generous and considerate and caring knows probably what his political views are. So I'm going to get back to a little bit to the best, how Kenny was the best. Kenny was one of the best at showing up for people. Showing up for the community, showing up for his employees, showing up for his family, showing up for his friends, and showing up for people he didn't even know sometimes, okay? That's what Kenny did. Kenny gave. He gave everything I just said about showing up. He was supportive, he was honest, and if he got something wrong, he owned it and he apologized. And we moved on, or he moved on. Kenny dedicated, he was always dedicated, almost always had a good sense of humor. Oh, let me go back for a second, because Roger talked about food, and Glenn talked about food. And this is a classic Kenny. If you spent any time with Kenny, we would go to a restaurant, and Kenny would get onto these little situations where if he hit something he liked, he was there every day, every other day, going back, and so we go to a restaurant. I go, Kenny, what are you going to order? He goes, I'm not hungry. I'm not that hungry. And I go, okay, well, I'm going to order something. And then he'd look and he'd go, can I have a French fry? can I have just a little bite of that? So long story short, he's always a foodie, and he would eat half of my food, which was fine. But let's see if I lost track here. I'm almost done, I promise. So Kenny, he was dedicated, always good-humored, and somehow, and I know why, he had friends all over the planet. Kenny, ladies and gentlemen, gave his all to Carmel by the Sea. I guarantee you, I live there, and I walk around every day, and I know a ton of people. There are very few people who have given as much of their time, their resources, to support the village as much as he did. So this is the part I was worried about. The reason I love Kenny is because he loved my boy, Luca. He would call every day, or like 3 or 4 times a day. He said, Manny, where's Luca? Bring Luca, bring Luca. So Luca's gonna grow up without an amazing person in his life. And that's what gets me. Thank you.
John Carlos.
Thank you, Roger.
Damn, man, you had me rallied up until you ended on that, and I got choked up there. So there was a group text earlier saying that we should write what we were going to say down today, and I was like, no, I'm going to wing it. And then I tried practicing it in the car, and I failed, so I was like, I'm going to write something down. But anyways, I want to thank everyone for coming out today, Kenny's family for letting me speak today, a couple words. I got to enjoy some words with some people here today about Kenny and how we all remember him. Everybody's got a little bit of a different memory about him. I met Kenny in 2018. That's when I first moved into town. And I knew Carmel was special. It was a special place, but I would learn that it was full of a community of people that made it great. Ken introduced me to many locals and other business owners, many that would later help me and support me with some of the businesses that I managed around town. And over the years, things would change, as they always do, but I was lucky to have Ken take me under his wing as a mentor and a friend, and very much like a father. I remember COVID. A lot of good memories during COVID. I remember him walking a lot with Tony Solomon and Faisal, the wise men, I called them here in town. I said, I want to be like those guys one day, I want to be like Manny too, but I want to be like those guys too, and take things seriously every once in a while. But those were difficult times for many people. I did build a speakeasy. I'm sorry if you didn't get the invite to come to that. I got in trouble for that, so that didn't last very long. But I do remember Ken's walks. That was a big thing about Ken, is that he loved to walk, and he liked to walk in the street. And by the street, I mean like in the middle of the street. He liked to, and we would wait till everybody left town, so we'd be walking around midnight. It was safe, but every once in a while you'd get some wild drivers, and I'd be on the sidewalk saying, Ken, come back over. You're gonna get hit, and he wasn't afraid. People would honk at him and get pretty close to clipping him, but he, I don't know, he goes, this is how we do it in Brooklyn. I thought he was a tough guy for that. But it was during those difficult times that Ken showed his ability to be empathetic and rally people to come together. During the highs and lows, that's when I saw Ken really supported and loved the city of Carmel. Someone mentioned the ceremony that happened recently. I remember that night. There was an intermission, and Ken and I walked outside to get some fresh air. And I remember him saying something like, in all my years that I've been involved with the community, I've never won an award. And I was surprised about that, someone like Ken who's done so much for so many people. But little did he know, shortly after he'd be honored of being voted Carmel's community champion. And no one could have been more deserving of that title than Ken. He was very happy and grateful that night, I remember. We went out and celebrated. We did some more walking in the streets. Recently, Ken and I took a trip to San Diego for a food show. And again, at night, we'd walk around the city after the show, and that was one of his favorite things to do. I said, Ken, it's San Diego, a little bit more dangerous to walk around the streets of San Diego, so, let's keep it on the sidewalk. But that's, in hindsight, that's kind of when I noticed he started slowing down a little bit in his steps. And I remember one night in particular, we were having dinner, and there was this young guy sitting next to us. It looked like he was having a hard time. Ken noticed it right away and started talking to him, and kind of cheered him up. And within a couple of hours, it brought life back into this young man, and that's when I realized, I was like, that's the kind of guy Ken was, always, wherever we were, he was that type of guy to me and towards many other people. I think about the countless times people would come into his restaurant and just sit with him. I'd look through the window, and I got the Heisman a few times as well. I was told to stay away. Because it was important. That's how much importance he put into talking to whoever was in front of him. And I am not very good at that sometimes. I'm not a very good listener, not like Ken was at least. But that was his ability to be empathetic and listen. That was his superpower. That's what I admired about Ken. A while ago, Ken taught me another word called goodwill, a word that is synonymous with friendly, helpful, and the reputation it brings into an establishment. Ken brought goodwill to the city of Carmel by the City specifically, not just to the locals, but the thousands of people that visit us each and every year. For those of you who are involved with the community, you understand this. They say you can honor someone through the acts of good service that you can bring, and I know we can all help each other. Many of you I've seen even just, participating, coming here today and helping bring people together today in this special way. Especially during hard times. So I'll keep it short. I'll just lastly say, please don't wait for later. I thought I had later. I thought I was going to be able to take more trips with Ken. And lastly, I'll just say, check in on your friends, check in on yourself, and enjoy this ride. Thank you.
The mayor of Carmel.
Carmel attracts strong opinions and interesting characters. That's part of what makes it special and part of what makes it challenging at times. In a place where people can argue passionately about everything from tree trimming to home addresses, Kenny Spilfogel was a rare personality who made our complicated little town feel simpler. Kenny was someone you could actually talk to. He listened first. Then he looked for common sense and common ground before taking a position. And when he did, he said it in a way that felt real. You always knew it came from care and thought, not ego or agenda. He could seem rough around the edges, that's for sure. But there was a softness underneath it all. He spoke his mind with a kind of honesty that never felt unkind. Kenny gave his time and his talent in ways that touched almost every corner of this community. He showed up with food for events because feeding people was one of the ways he showed love. And it was his art form that he was expressing in a town formed by artists. He understood it brought people together and supported the village. He cared deeply about Carmel's youth and about the small businesses that give this special place its charm. He generously volunteered for everything, committees, events, the unglamorous work that keeps a community running behind the scenes. During COVID, when I called, Kenny was the first to take action for the Carmel Gives meal program, helping provide thousands, many thousands of meals for the school district and many nonprofits, and he did it without hesitating for 1 second. He was a serial entrepreneur who threw himself completely into whatever he was building. He was involved in every detail, every day. He ran a seafood restaurant with real passion, which I always found ironic and endearing because he couldn't stand salmon. He reinforced that in the hospital when I asked for his life story. That was Kenny, fully committed, entirely himself, and never pretending to be anything else. It's still hard to believe how quickly we lost him. One day he was showing up and speaking at council meetings, joining me every Sunday for my radio segment, and then he was gone. I'm grateful that so many of us, how many did go to the hospital? There's a lot of hands up. So many of us were able to spend precious time with him along the way. I missed the texts asking me to stop by. Walking through that right-hand door at Flaherty's to find him at his laptop, ready to motivate me to solve another problem that the village was facing. We heard from Manny about that. I didn't do everything he asked. I tried. Or driving by and seeing him holding court on the sidewalk, welcoming guests the way only Kenny could. I catch myself thinking I should call him, and then remembering I can't. But Kenny's passion for this community will live on through the many people in this synagogue. He inspired every day to make a difference, and in the positive impact they will carry forward in the years ahead. Thank you.
I didn't say his name. That was Dale Byrne, the mayor. I just called him mayor. Because, you know, when somebody's the mayor, you think everybody knows who he is. Right. Jared? This is Kenny's son, Jared Spilfogel.
Hello, everyone. Give me 1 second. It's pretty weird, huh? I think the Dale mayor here said it pretty good, that it just, you know, he was here one moment and then gone the next. I haven't really given myself a moment to process, so I apologize. Okay. I don't even know what to say about my dad. I have some things written down, but he was a fucking interesting guy. You know what I mean? Like, I think you guys all did a beautiful way of sharing some stories that highlighted it, but you know, I was sitting there just going like, you can only really describe like 60% of it through the stories. I mean, it was really an experience being around my dad. It was like, you would go from feeling so loved to just shitty about yourself so quickly. And only you only felt that if you were he really loved you. So it was deeply confusing. Deeply confusing. And I feel like I was born to give my dad shit, honestly. Like, I definitely was my dad's biggest critic. And I enjoyed that. So I really do appreciate everybody for being a part of his life, because everybody did such a good job of highlighting how much he's contributed to the community and to all of you in different ways, but you all have contributed to his life. And he needed every single one of you, because my dad needed people. He needed everyone. He loved all of you. And you put up with him. So that as well. So we're all very appreciative, and this has been an amazing turnout. And everybody's contributed so much to his life. And I'm not going to speak to his accomplishments. I think everyone's done an amazing job of that. I'm not going to speak to his personality, because I think everyone's done an amazing job of that. But I do want to share just some funny moments, and then just something to reflect on. The hospital stay was such a strange experience. Not only did it happen very quickly, we broke the record for visitors at Chomp, which I thought was a really cool achievement, honestly. But also, just like how my dad was, it was just classic Ken Spilfogel behavior. And so one story that really just stands out to me is, over the years, if you were really close to him, you never really understood, how do you want to go? Like, my dad did not want to die. Anybody that really knew, if death was his biggest fear, and that was something that he wanted to avoid at all costs. And so he would talk about, how do I want to die? You'd be, Ken, what do you want to do? You want to be buried? You want to be cremated? And my whole life, he'd be like, no, I want you to stuff me and put me on top of a mountaintop. Okay? Fair, right? I never really thought much of that, right? Because, I'm kind of a rational person, so I was thinking, when it comes time, we'll get an answer of what to do with you, Dad. That's not the case. So on Monday, the day before he went unresponsive, Chris calls me. Me and Chris had so many conversations, just being like, dude, what are we gonna do? Dad's not eating. Dad's not doing the PT. He's just being classic Ken, resistant and wants to do it my way. He's like, why won't the doctors let me do it my way? I was a couple weeks away from calling you. Did he tell you about the idea that he had for the city? Okay. So he didn't want to do PT, and he had a great idea that all he needed to do was put double rails in the park in Carmel. And then that you would put double rails in the sidewalk and things like that. So he could just walk around Carmel. And he didn't have to recover. So I was close to calling you on that because he wouldn't drop it. But so there was this gentleman named Dharma, and he was a psychiatrist, but I'm not really sure what his role was. He was an incredible man, really helpful. Pharmacist. Thank you. See, look how many people went there. You know what I mean? So he was the pharmacist, but he was more than just a pharmacist. And so we were in close contact with him about my dad's treatment and roadblocks and challenges and trying to make it work for my dad. And the Monday that we kind of had to call it, that there was nothing left that we could do. We go in there. I'm on speaker, and the pharmacist delivers an Academy Award winning speech. He's like, Ken, you have made such an impact in this community. It is evident how many people love and care about you and are here for you. You broke the record. I mean, it's been incredible. We bend the rules for you. But you have incurable cancer, and you're going to die, and this is it. We had to be very blunt with my dad, so sidebar. And he's like, I know that you love your kids more than anything, and they need an answer from you. Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? And my dad's just like, I don't want to give up. That's what he said to the farmer. He's emotional. He's like, I don't want to give up. I don't want to be a quitter. And then Dharma's like, you're not. You fought so hard. Everybody can see that. Your sons can see that. You've done your work. And now the best thing that you can do for your kids is decide what you want to do before you pass. Do you want to be buried or cremated? And so my dad takes a long pause, and he's doing that Kenny stare. And he looks at the pharmacist. He's like, have you seen Blade Runner? And I'm on the phone. I've been doing this for 3 months. I'm just like, fuck, dude. And I hear Chris just, and Dharma's like, I have seen Blade Runner, but I don't understand. Like, what do you mean? And my dad's like, that's how I want to go. And we're just dumbfounded. We have no idea what that means. So we put it on, right? And I did that was hilarious for me. But also, like, what does he mean by that? Like, I was really, like, it's chipping away at me. And so I looked it up. It's actually quite beautiful. So I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to read the rest of myself. So, in Blade Runner, the character your dad is likely referring to is Roy Batty, played by Rutger Hauer. In Blade Runner, Roy Batty's final moment is not about fighting death, it's about witnessing it. He's fully aware he's about to die, and instead of resisting, he reflects on the beauty and uniqueness of what he's experienced. Then he lets go. The famous quote is from the movie, all those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die. Very dramatic. What surrounds that line is just as powerful. He describes an extraordinary thing he's seen, things no one else ever will. And the tragedy is that those moments die with him. That's the core idea. A whole universe of lived experience disappears when a person dies. So I don't know if he meant that. Like, that's what it said. I thought that was incredibly profound. And it's had me thinking, like I've been sitting with that for a while, about how deep of a person my dad was, and sometimes feeling like I couldn't touch that fully. I think me and my dad had a very complicated relationship. Victoria shared something with me, where it's like, I think that he wanted to love me, but we couldn't quite get past that wall. It's made me reflect on kind of all of us. And so I have written just one last thing. So, oh yes, yeah, that was his last words to me. Don't eat the melon and the grapes, but that's another time. So, I'm a marriage and family therapist, and over the years I've sat with people of all ages, kids, teenagers, adults, each carrying their own pain, their own hopes, their own struggles. And despite how different they all are, I've come to see something they all have in common. Deep down, sometimes right at the surface, we already know what we need to do to live more honestly, more fully, and more like ourselves. And yet we don't. We tell ourselves it's time, or money, or other people, or circumstances, but if we're really honest, it's fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of being too much, fear of rejection, of losing control, of being alone, of not being loved. And those fears don't just sit quietly in the background, they shape our lives. They keep us from saying what we really mean, from loving the way we want to love, from showing up fully, even with the people sitting right in front of us. And underneath all of that is an even deeper fear, the fear of the unknown. I watched my dad talk about things he wanted to do, ways he wanted to change, and things he'd get to later. And like so many of us, he believed there would always be more time. But there isn't always more time. And that's the part we don't like to look at. Because if we really let that in, it means something has to change, not someday, but now. So if there's anything I want to leave you with today, it's this. You don't need certainty to take the next step. That's what faith actually is, not knowing how it will turn out and choosing to move forward anyway, trusting that something will meet you there. And if that scares you, if you feel that tension in your chest right now, that's not a sign to stop. That's the exact place your life is asking you to grow. because none of us know how much time we have. And I want you to really hear this. These are the things you've been putting off, conversations you've been avoiding, love you haven't expressed, risks you haven't taken, not because you don't care, but because you're afraid. And one day you won't have the option anymore. So don't wait. Don't wait to say I'm sorry. Don't wait to tell someone you love them. Don't wait to become the person you know you're capable of being. Because in the end, it's not failure we regret, it's hesitation. It's the moments we held back when life was asking us to step forward. So take the step, say the thing, feel the feeling, love fully, even when it's uncomfortable, because that's what it's meant to be alive. And that's what my dad stood for. He said the crazy thing, he did the crazy thing, he took the risks, and he didn't care what anyone thought. And so thank you, Dad, for passing that on to me, and I love you. And thank you, everybody.
This concludes the people talking. The rabbi is going to come up right now and say a prayer. And then I want to remind you of what I said in regards to sharing your experiences about Kenny or your stories, because, boy, there's a lot of them. And there's going to be food also. So just letting you know that. God bless you all.
We wouldn't be complete without Chris coming up here too. Jewishly, this is not like a wedding where you just, the people who are most moved have to feed and entertain everybody. In our community, we're told that the people to care for are the parents, now of blessed memory, the siblings, of which Lenny is still alive. He's got a sister, Diana. The wife, the spouse, or spouses, Patty, Laura, Victoria, and the kids, one of blessed memory. And the community makes something to take care of those people that are ground zero. And we have a faith community here, and I'm coming to see that the culinary community takes care of their own in a very big way. And the family was so blown away. Chris.
My name is Chris Spilfogel. I'm Kenny's eldest son. I would like to thank those who supported my dad and our family through this difficult time. I am honored and moved by the outpouring of people surrounding my dad during his decline in the hospital. The support never stopped. It never wavered. His community surrounded him and supported him till the very end. And I'm truly grateful. I would like to thank all the restaurants and vendors graciously providing food for the event. Anthony from Stationery, Dia from Yafas. I'd like to thank Faisal, who has Village Corner in Norris. Pam from Wild Plum, Lori from Anton Michelle. Thank you, Austin, who has Cafe Del Mar. Thank you for Juan Carlos Lopez and Chef Alberto Cruz from Hog's Breath. Thank you, JK, for providing the wine. Thank you all the other vendors for providing wine and other treats. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Roger, for being such a support for us for the family and emceeing my dad's celebration of life. I would like to thank Rabbi David for being a spiritual guide during my dad's last days. I would like to thank the Rabbi Glickman for his counsel and wisdom. Thank you, Congregation Beth Israel, for allowing us to host this beautiful event. Lastly, I would like to thank my cousin Daniel. Sorry. For truly being a rock through all this whole process, and planning this beautiful celebration of life for my dad. Dad, thank you for everything. I owe you the world. You taught me the meaning of community and family. And here I am is largely because of you. Truly have some big shoes to fill. I love you and miss you so much. Thank you.
Food at its core, it's really a science. You take proteins and oils and sugars and combine them with heat or refrigeration to prepare something. And the specifics are really important. Don't melt the butter before you mix it in. It changes everything. It's really chemistry, physics that goes on. Food at its core is life. What you do is you take things that God put on this earth. You take a seed, you stick it in the ground, one thing of corn, and up comes a plant with 1,000 kernels of corn on it. That's a miracle. Thank you, God. And the farm workers that take and process it and bring it to you so that the chefs have these ingredients that are life, different parts of life. Energy from the sun, the soil, the water, the air, and they present it not just with science, but with art to a plate, which is something holy there. It's life on that plate. Food at its core is science. Food at its core is life. Food at its core is art. But can realize something else. Food is love. People come to this restaurant. They want to drown their sorrows in a grilled cheese and tomato soup. And that soup better be good and the bread better be wonderful, and if that grilled cheese isn't hot, there's something wrong. People come to celebrate. We just got engaged. Oh, we're going to go. And they name a place where they want to, where they can celebrate. And Ken was kind of aware that of what I'm going to call not just what's on the table, but what's above the table. I'm going to talk about food and what's above the table. How do the people interact when they're eating the food? Are they happy to share with each other? Are they free to have conversations that they couldn't have any other place? Love. That's the best word I can use to describe it. And that's the ingredient that Ken put in everything. It was a joy. You know, we talk about food servers. He lived a life of service, and I don't just mean as a waiter. And I don't know whether he realized every little detail, but he brought life to people with love. So here's my task today. My task today is to take the words Ken Spilfogel and make them so that when you go from here, they are repeated in this world, and he is thought of in this world, and when he is remembered, the world is made better. We call that making his memory a blessing. So I'm going to share some above-the-table things that Ken was aware of that we might do. If you're in a rush and you're driving and you want to shove something down your gullet in what I call the two-fisted shove technique, where you don't taste anything, think of Ken Spilfogel. Pull over. Eating is a sacred event. Savor it. Savor it. You're going to put it in your body. It's giving you energy for your life. Savor that moment. Food is a gift of love to share. Now, this might cost you $10. But you might want to drive around in your car with a box of healthy-looking candy bars. And if you come upon someone, you don't have to rate them. You can just hand it to them. Because you're prepared. You're right there. And it might be the attendant at the parking garage who's been sitting out in the sun all day. With your ticket, you say, here, thank you. This is for you. Food is love. Food is love. Find some way to share your food with others. Find some way to appreciate your food. If you find that you're doing it and you think of Ken, you will be making his memory a blessing. I'm going to conclude with two prayers. The family really wants you to tell stories. You really want to tell stories. There's amazing food throughout here. Think about what's above the table and use the food as an opportunity to share stories about Ken. If you have a plate of food, sit outside in the sun or the shade and just tell stories. If you don't have food, right afterwards, people can come here and just share stories in the first couple of rows. Just talk amongst yourselves. You'll be making his memory a blessing. Please rise. שוכן במרומים, אמצי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה. עם קדושים וטהורים כזוהר, כי המזהירים את נשמת גרשון, שהלך לעולמו. בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר, Amen. O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the shelter of your wings to our loved one, Ken Spilfogel, who has entered eternity. Master of mercy, may his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and may his repose always be peace. And let us say, Amen. The last prayer we're going to say is Kaddish, even though it's found in the prayer books on page 598. If you respond Amen at the appropriate times, and I'll make it known when it's appropriate, it's as though you said Kaddish. It's as though you said it. It's a prayer that praises God. You don't have to be Jewish to say it. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach yirotei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayichon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imaru together. Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lal me'amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei d'kudashah barich hu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran b'yalama v'imaru together. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imaru. Amen. Osei shalom bin romav, hu yasei shalom. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'kol b'nei b'chava, v'imaru together. Amen.
Okay, this concludes the service, but there's a video that Ashley, Chris's wife, made that she's going to play about Ken, if you guys want to turn around and watch it, or move around, or start eating, or whatever you want to do. Thank you very much.